Okay, welcome. Some people are still popping up, but we'll get started since it is 2:30 and I want to be respectful of your time. Welcome to our professional development today, presented to you by Self Consulting and Tail Academy. This presentation today is being recorded, so if you are happy to be on camera, you're welcome to turn your camera on and show your smiling faces, but I totally understand if you'd rather have your camera off and not be part of our recording today. Either way, if your camera's on or if your camera's off, I would love for your participation, either by coming off of mute when we're chatting or just typing into the chat. My name is Maura Musso, and I'll be your presenter today. I am an instructional consultant with Self Consulting. I am also a professor of early childhood and childhood education at SUNY New Paltz. I am a New York State certified elementary teacher with certification in kindergarten to 6th grade, and a New York State certified literacy specialist certification in kindergarten to 12th grade. And I've experienced teaching preschoolers through adult learners. And I'm very excited to be here and present to you today. Just some norms for our time together. We started right here. It started and ends on time. I jumped right on at 2:30. And I promise to have you done within an hour. In fact, I'll probably try to stop at about 2:25 because at the end of our session today, I have just a brief feedback form that I would love for you to take a moment and fill out. So I'll try to allow for about 5 minutes for you to be able to complete that at the end. What I ask of you is that during our time here that you are here, be here now. Think about your students. My goal today is to bring to you some ideas, some research, some information that could help you with your classes. So if you could be here with your class in mind, particularly assessments, if you can, come into our beginning here with ideas of, well, what am I doing with assessment? What are my thoughts of assessment? So that you can apply what we're talking about directly to your own work with your own students. So our professional learning today is going to focus on assessment and reflection. It would be great if you could just take a moment to introduce yourselves in the chat. Just share your name, your content area and or grade that you teach. Just so I have an idea of who's here and who we're working with today. So if you can just take a moment, type into the chat a little bit. Hi, Amanda, welcome. 3K and 3K. Anyone else out there to introduce themselves today? Hi, Bonnie, welcome. Hi, Michelle, Tiffany, Kristen, Angela. These are going fast for me to see them as they're popping in the chat. We have lots of different grade levels, K2 special ed. Oops, I went too far. 5th grade, preschool. Good, we have a great range of grade levels here. It looks like early to upper elementary. Wonderful. Well, welcome all of you. It's great to have you here. We are going to be working with a note catcher today, and I preloaded this. I'll put this back in the chat just so you have this link. I preloaded this note catcher with some information from our PowerPoint. You will get these the slide deck as an email probably tomorrow or so. But in the chat, I just put a link to a Google Doc, which will be our note catcher today. And we will be using this note catcher at the end. We'll go to some smaller breakout rooms to have some discussion time. So if you could just get this open so that you have access to it. as I said, this is a place for you to just jot down some information, some of your own thoughts for yourself as we're going through, but we will be using it at the end. So just some of our learning intentions for today. Today we're going to be talking about assessments, and we are going to consider assessments by recognizing the research base for high impact practices portable across environments. So we want to be looking at in-person, hybrid, and online environments. We're going to be looking at ways we can adapt our traditional assessments by applying the SAMR Framework, and we'll talk about what that is, so that we can integrate technology with our authentic assessments across our learning environment. We're also going to look at how we can nurture student ownership and growth mindset by exploring specific student-centered strategies in both assessment and feedback. So again, I just have a little note on here for you today. There's going to be a wealth of information thrown out there to you in an hour. Track it, just what catches your attention. What could you grab to apply to your students and your situation?
Just real quick, what's SAMR?
SAMR, that's a way, that's a technology framework, and we'll get into that as we go through.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So today's session, we're going to explore how to find a focus or how to find a purpose for assessment, how teacher feedback and authentic assessments support learning, how to utilize that SAMR framework for integrating technology with authentic assessments. So we're going to put all of this together today. So let's just start really small, really simple, by thinking about assessment. Assessment is something that you do in your classroom on a regular basis. So just in the chat, if you could jump in and just throw any of these questions that are on the screen out there. What assessment means to you? What words or phrases come to mind when you hear? And then how do you think we could categorize these words and phrases into different categories, into buckets? What are big terms we can do here? So any thoughts on assessment? Let's just take a moment and get those into the chat. What does this mean to you? What do you think about when we talk about assessments? Student growth, absolutely, that's what we're looking for. Thank you. Anybody else have thoughts on what assessment means, or words or phrases that come to mind when we talk about that? How students show mastery. Monitoring, understanding, and need for reteaching. Yep, to inform our instruction, absolutely. Progression, collecting data. Yeah, all of these, right? All of these things we're thinking about on a day-to-day basis as we're going through. Growth mindset, skills acquisition, instruction. See where your students are at, behavioral assessment. Yeah, so there's lots of components to assessment that we're thinking about on a regular basis. And here's just some that we might come up with, some thoughts that I predicted you may have come up with. So systematic, outcomes, looking at curriculum maps, programs, results, measurements, having goals and actions, missions, review, rubrics, all of these. Seeing some more things come up. Goals is coming up in the chat, their weaknesses. So things to think about is how these things that you're putting into the chat and as the things that you see on this screen may change across learning environments. So both with the needs of our students, our assessments may change, and the types of instruction that we're working on may change as well. So I'm going to play you a little video, and I want you to look at this and think about what's going on. So when I hit play here in this crazy circle illusion, the ball is going to be moving, and I'm going to ask you to just watch it and to say, which direction do you think each ball is moving? So again, you can just pop this right into the chat. And a little bit about how you know or why you think that. Okay, so let's take a look at the moving ball. Just jump back into the chat again and tell me what direction you think that ball is moving. It is a trick question, but don't worry. Just give me your thoughts. Anti-clockwise, okay. Around on a circle. Okay. All right. Good thoughts, good thoughts. So let's take a look. So our ball, oops, why is this not all coming up? We don't want to watch it again. Technology fail. On an angle, around in a circle. Right? The way in which we see our ball moving is going to be different how we're looking at it. So we could see that some of us will look at it thinking, well, they're individually moving in one direction and as a group moving in another direction. Some of us may not see at first that individually they're moving, but can just note that the group is moving. And so we can look at this and think about how our students may seem to be thinking about how things are moving differently. So my reason for showing you this and how this relates to today's professional development is when we focus on one thing, those of us who just focused on that whole big circle of balls moving, when we focus on one thing, one case study, a student, we are seeing things differently than if we focus on something broader. Similarly, if we focus on a specific feature, the content, we're going to see things differently than if we inform all of our planning. If we look at lots of different parts, look at each one of those individual balls that are making up that bigger ball, that is going to help us inform our planning and inform our instruction differently and more thoroughly. So our intention in our assessment cycle is important to us to know. Reflection is also important to us. These are big components of what we're doing with assessments. Research also comes in here, and some thoughts that we have gotten from research from the professionals in our field. John Dewey tells us we do not learn just from experience, we learn from reflecting on experience. And so that's giving us this thought to, okay, how do we have our students reflect upon their experience as part of their assessment? Margaret J. Wheatley, without reflection, we go blindly on our way, creating more unintended consequences and failing to achieve anything useful. So we want to segue here into thinking about assessment, not as just that data-driven piece to inform us and to inform our instruction, but we want to start thinking about bringing reflection for our students' part into their assessments so that they can reflect upon what they did strongly, what they're weak in, and then we can guide them using those strengths and those weaknesses to further learning. The word assess is coming from a Latin word, which means to sit with. And this is a really nice way to think about our assessments, which can be intimidating to our students. So if we think about assessment as sitting with our learner, so as we're assessing our students, we're sitting with them. This implies that assessing our students is something that we do with them and not to them. And this would be a really nice way for our students who are fearing assessments, right? Who were very uncomfortable coming out of those tests last week. This is something that's happening to them. If we take it away from this thing that we're making them do, that we're happening to them, and that we're going through with them, so that we can reflect together upon their strengths and their weaknesses, and then take them to their own next level. Research tells us that there are 5 standards for authentic instruction, for rigor and meaning. And again, you will get this slide deck that you can access all of these links in the future. So the 5 standards that are coming out with this are higher order thinking, depth of knowledge, connectedness to the world beyond the classroom, substantive conversation, and social support for student academic achievement. So if we think for a moment about how these might apply to assessment, we could think about, where we want to go. How would these play a role in our assessment? So as we continue through the next couple of slides, keep these 5 standards in mind, and in your head be thinking about, well, how could these be connecting to my assessments in my classroom? Again, research is showing us that engagement for our students is essential. That, we talk about student engagement, you're like, yeah, well, that's great if they're involved. Well, it's actually more important than just being great. That we need to invest our time in our students and getting student engagement, because our research is telling us that deep learning only happens when people, in our case, our students, are cognitively and emotionally engaged with the material, and feel safe in their environment in dealing with this material. So one of the ways to get our students engaged is to keep building upon what they know, what their prior experience is, both their academic experience, their cultural experience, their social experience, their experience from personal interests, and that we go from there and build those scaffolds from where they are to where we want them to be going. This connects to some of our coursework that we're offering in other professional developments for culturally responsive teaching. So it would be a nice segue. If you're interested in that, you can look into some of those courses as well. So we're thinking, of course, of our types of assessments that we're using in our classrooms. We have our formative assessment and our summative assessment, and both of which we need to design as being authentic and being relevant to the student. And I really kind of love this image of thinking it this way. So the chef puts all of this time, effort, chopping, ingredients, mixing up the right seasoning, all of that into making their soup. And the chef tastes it along the way as a formative assessment. So, what do I need to put more in here? And then maybe they throw a little bit more of this or a little bit more of that in there to get to the desired outcome, the desired taste. So that's formative assessment, reflecting along the way in the process of creation, in the process of learning. When the guests taste the soup, it's brought out to your table, that's summative assessment. Now nothing's changing. Nothing's being added. It's not being tweaked beyond that. So that's like the culminating piece. And if we apply this to our students in our classrooms, we want them to be involved in this formative assessment piece, that they're looking to see where their own weaknesses are in their learning. They're reflecting again upon their own learning and seeing where those gaps may be, and building upon that before we get to our summative assessment that we are doing with them to get our culmination. So kind of thinking about what we're doing each day in our teaching with our students as being something as simple as making soup. So this graphic is kind of showing the circle almost of the assessment cycle. And some things that are look on here may surprise you in this representation. So as I'm going through it, think about what stands out to you as being, I wouldn't have thought of it that way. And we'll see if we can have a little bit of a discussion about that after I go through it. So our assessment cycle is iterative, it's cumulative, it's supportive. That's what we're our goal, that's what we're aiming for. And this then is based upon our teacher guidance and our feedback. So our specific feedback, our timely feedback, it not needing to be evaluative, it can be manageable, it's ongoing. So we're going through this cycle of starting with guidance and feedback along the way, then moving to our students having choice and voice, having commitments, being attracted to what they're learning, having interests and engagement, our students being driven to persist, and I like the word that they choose here, delight, just being involved and interested and engaged through the cycle, then getting to our authentic assessment, where they are applying what they have learned in some kind of performance-based, realistic, meaningful, and significant way. So it's kind of a cycle of this. Anything in here surprise you or new to you, or something that you really have not been thinking about in your own assessment? Okay, come on off mute if you want to share, or jump into the chat if you'd like to talk about how anything you see here connects to your own assessment. It's the end of a Monday. I understand. We don't want to just want to share. So then let's transition into talking about SAMR assessment. As I'm going through this with you, this kind of a mini lecture here for a moment, if you don't mind. Think about, as we go through the whole thing, your questions, your comments, your reactions. And then when I get to the end, if you want to share and ask questions or get into a deeper discussion, we can do that. So SAMR is an acronym for S, substitution, A, augmentation, M, modification, and R, redefinition. And one of the ways that this is presented is a teacher as a barista. And so we can look at it this way as we're thinking about our morning coffee that we go through. SAMR was developed in the 1990s to model transforming learning through technology. And it's designed to evaluate levels of technology. Teachers are using it across learning environments today to raise student engagement and authenticity, really. So if we look at the S, we're looking at this as our simple black coffee, nothing added, just you needed the really strong stuff. So if we're thinking about substitution, we're just going simple. Tech, this is bringing technology into what we're already doing, that we're just applying what we're doing to technology instead of maybe just paper and pen. So there's really no functional change. If a student is writing an essay on paper, when we're doing substitution, they're just substituting tech for that pen. Augmentation is adding a little bit more in here. So this is going from our straight coffee to a latte. In augmentation, the tech is adding to it. It's a direct tool that is going to functionally improve it. So now our black coffee is a little better with this added into it to make it a latte. There's a little bit of improvement. Our M, modification, there's some significant changes here. There's significant task redesign. So now we might have a caramel macchiato. Then for redefinition, now it's something new. It's creation of a new task that was previously inconceivable. So we get to our pumpkin spice latte. And so kind of we move down through this to build upon, to offer more opportunities for our students to be assessed, more opportunities for engagement, more opportunities for authenticity. So let's look at how this might work. So if we think about our assignment we've all given, a handwritten paper. At the S level of SAMR, the substitution, this involves, again, doing the same thing you would do without technology. Nothing's changing. So we would write that paper by hand, going through the writing process, doing our citations, all of those things. At the S level, we're not changing any of that assignment. We're just going to use word processing software and type the paper. So it's just straight substitution technology for the pen. When we take that handwritten paper and we go to the augmentation level, again, we're still having some still a substitution, but now there's a little bit of functional improvement here. The task is still the same. They're still writing a paper, but technology is going to add some improvement. So in the augmentation category of that paper, we could use speech to text in word processing software to improve the writing process. So now they don't have to sit there and type, they can speak, and that's going into their writing process. Going to the next level, the modification level, and this, they're going to use technology for significant task redesign. So the outcome is going to be the same. They're still going to have a paper, but it'll be an enhanced paper because of the addition of technology. So now the students have written their paper in a word processing software, and then they upload the paper for peer review. And then they get feedback right away. They could be in a Google Doc and getting instant feedback that they see. So again, those 3 levels of our handwritten paper are still very similar to that original, what they did on paper. Then when we get to redefinition allows for bringing in technology for a new task that you wouldn't be able to do without technology. So now instead of that students just having an essay that they wrote, they could use technology to present that same information that they were going to be writing in paragraph form on their paper to create a multimedia video, bringing in more technology, bringing in voiceovers, bringing in links, bringing in experts, sharing videos of other people's research coming in. And so it's a whole new redesigned, redefined assignment at a whole different level. And so this is what our SAMR is thinking about. So let's just look at a couple of examples of going from substitution to augmentation. So as we see here, this is a simple vocabulary journal exercise. So, and the one on the left, the handwritten one, they were, the assignment was, to put your word, some definitions, an illustration, and a sentence. From going from substitution to augmentation, now we just see a digital version. So again, very similar, but now the content is slightly improved with digital images being brought in, so that their students have a more concrete visual than their own stick figure. Thinking about assessment and augmentation. So again, just a little bit of an enhanced substitution of technology, where we have our handwritten rubrics that we work through. And so we see here on the left, the teacher is evaluating something on a rubric for the student, where we then just use technology to have an interactive rubric. So again, this is not going very different. This is just how can we bring in technology to enhance it, to make it a little bit strong. If we go a next level now of assessment to modification, we see again on the left, we have our handwritten version of this. On the technology being brought in, we can type in our comments of things to add right in there. So you can get peer review feedback, teacher feedback. It's faster and it's more defined for the students. So modifying the way in which we give our feedback. Another type of modification is going to be presented in this video, and this is called tag feedback. This might be something that you're already doing in your classroom. So let's take a look at what this teacher is doing.
You have 3 minutes for your tag feedback. T, tell something you like. A, ask a question. G, give a suggestion.
TAG is our school-wide critique process. It's a very quick, formative way to say, hey, this is what you did great, and here are your next steps. At the completion of a lesson, they select which work they want to critique. We have a TAG protocol sheet to write their feedback. You always want to start with a positive, something that the student did well. Then A, ask a question. Why did you make this decision? How did you do that? And then G, give a suggestion, what they can do to improve their work. They share out their feedback and their next steps.
I like how Sebastian did the sky behind the buildings.
When they come in for their next session, they're all ready to go applying feedback.
So that's another type of feedback, a way we can modify our assessments of having our students participate in those.
You have 3 minutes.
Why it always wants to do that to me, sorry. And then our final level is redefinition. And when we think about redefinition, we have substantial change, including technology. And the technology enhances what the students are doing. So let's take a look at how this class redefined a lesson assessment.
And a lot more educational for them to make a video on.
Let me just go back a little. Sorry, I don't know why that didn't link.
These students are 8th graders and they're in an 8th grade technology class. They are making videos on the book Tom Sawyer, which is a collaboration between the technology class and the language arts literature class. They came to me with the idea for this project because they were originally going to write an essay on the characters of Tom Sawyer and focus on the elements of characterization. And they decided that it would be a lot more fun and a lot more educational for them to make a video on this topic because they wanted to actually prove that they were able to visualize the characters in their head and to really create the characters using video.
In close, they're about to kiss. Perfect.
Prior to this project, the 8th grade students had very limited experience in film. They had never had experience with costume design or scenery, location scouting, or any of that. When we began this project, they actually wrote the scripts, and as they were writing, they actually had to write all of the action cues, and they had to come up with props and costumes that would really enhance their scene. Some of them ended up doing research on Tom Sawyer. They also used what they found online and what they pictured as they were reading to create the scenes, the locations, costumes, and everything that they filmed. When we watched the finished videos that we made during this project, the students were actually able to see what really happened in the book, what was their own interpretation, how different students interpreted the same scene in different ways. And all of these are things that they definitely wouldn't have been able to verbally explain or write in an essay. So the technology was definitely used to help them show their understanding of the book.
So as she was saying, that their technology being brought into this assessment took their entire ability to share their knowledge to a whole different level. And so instead of just having that simple essay that the students would have written, probably would have looked very similar to one another with their answers to their prompts, that they probably would never remember afterwards. This type of assessment, was more memorable to them, and also brought in other life skills that they, using technology, that they could continue to develop as they go forward. And so this idea of redefinition is taking it, and now it doesn't look anything like that essay that was the original assignment. But all of those components, all of those same things that the students would have had to do in order to write that essay and to be successful in that essay are brought in, plus more. Every time that's going to happen to me. So if we think about assessments on the SAMR level, so if we're thinking about that quiz, a paper quiz, a substitution could be, instead of giving it as paper, using an LMS quizzing tool to administer the quiz online. Augmentation, using a Kahoot type thing to be live, to administer it during class. Modification, instead of taking that paper quiz, creating flashcards on Quizlet. And then redefinition, setting that paper quiz aside and doing something totally different that wouldn't be conceivable without technology, they create a wiki document covering all of the material that would be on the quiz. So again, it's just this idea of how we can use technology to change what we've been doing in terms of just paper and pencil. This is not only something that can be applied to our different types of learning, whether we're doing in-person, hybrid, or online, but these are different things that we can be doing even all in-person classes. Not every assessment or every assignment needs to be redefined to be at the green level here. So there's different things you could think about for different assessments that you do, maybe some culminating assessments you want to get in there and just do a whole redefinition for. Maybe some like a brief modification is good. So again, it comes back to you and your class and what you see works best for your students. One form of redefinition for assessments and quizzes is Google Forms. And so I'll just show you a little bit about how this might help you to provide immediate feedback and immediate reteaching for students or immediate differentiation for students.
Hello everyone, this is Julio Penagos again with Solved, and today I'm going to show you how on Google Forms you could add sections, and more importantly you could transform assessments into differentiated instruction tools. So let's get started. So over here I have exit ticket or an assessment. It could be a starter, and basically it's a multiple choice question, and I want my students to answer this. But what I want to do is I want to create a path for students to go depending on their response. So if a student gets the right answer, I want them to go in a particular path. And if a student gets the wrong answer, I want them to go in a different path. Right? That's kind of what we mean by an example of differentiating. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to create two sections for each of my two types of students, the ones who get it right and the ones who get it wrong. And the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to go click on the question. I'm going to go to the right hand side. It says add section. I'm going to add a section right underneath that, and then I'm going to go ahead and add another section right underneath that, and that's going to give me two paths. That's going to be the two paths where I want my students to go. So the first section, let's say, is for the student who gets it wrong. So I'm going to title it thank you for trying, please watch this video. And then what I could do is I could add supplemental work for the students here in this section. So what I'm going to do in this case, I'm just going to add a video from YouTube search, and I'm going to do a YouTube search on correlation in scatter plots. Okay, so I'm gonna do a YouTube video search, and let's say out of these videos I really like this one, and I'm just gonna select that one. All right, so this is supplemental work and support for that student who got it the incorrect answer. And in this section 3, I'm going to add a path for my students who get it right. So I'm gonna say good work, good job, and I'm going to say please watch this video to supplement your work. All right, so maybe here I want to add something more advanced for my students, maybe take them to the next step, and maybe it could be a video, it could be a document, it could be anything. I'm going to do a video in this case again. So the video, let's say it's regression, right? Right, and let's say I have many videos of regression, statistics regression. Let's say I really like this one. I choose it, and that's it. Okay, so I just created the two sections. Great, but now I got to tell Google what to do with these sections. So that's the only part that's a little tricky. So I'm just going to click on the original question. I'm going to go and say, go to section based on answer, so that I could point the Google form in the right direction. And then it gives me these new options here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go, instead of saying continue to the next section if they choose option 1, since option 1 is the correct one, I want to point them to section 3, which is for the students who get it right. Section 2, I'm going to say thank you for trying, and option 2 and option 3 is going to be thank you for trying. And so now I told Google, look, if my students answer option 1, which is right, they're going to go this way. If my student answers something else, they're going to go in another way. And then finally I have to do something here, because I have 3 sections, and after each section you notice that there is a drop-down menu that tells you, allows you to tell Google where to go after each section, right? So besides telling Google where to go after each choice, I want to tell Google where to go after this section. So for this section, it doesn't matter, because this is telling Google for each choice to go into a specific section. So here I don't care that much about this, but what I do care is about this one, because the students who are gonna see section 2, the ones who did it wrong, then I don't want them to go to section 3 after that, and that's what's suggested right now. So instead of that, I'm gonna say submit form, or I could send them back to the original question, right? But I'm gonna say submit form for this guy, and then section 3, which is the last section, it will prompt students to submit the form just right after. Now the last thing I want to do is I want to show you what this looks like in the student's view. So I'm going to click here on preview, and then this is the exit ticket. This is the first section. You see there's no other questions. Students get to choose, and if a student chooses option 1, which is correct, they click next and they get this prompt, right? If a student gets option 2, right, which is incorrect, go to next, and they say thank you for trying, please watch this video, right? And then they get to submit. Right, so what we could do now is we could go back to our original objectives, which is on Google Forms. We learned a little bit on how to add sections, and then very importantly, an easy way to transform assessment into differentiated instruction tools. If you really like this video, give it a like, and if you want to see more content, just subscribe to our channel. Thank you very much for watching.
And so that's a really cool way to transform your quizzes and to be able to give immediate feedback, immediate reteaching, and immediate differentiation. In the video, he's using YouTube videos, but you could just as easily, and this might work better for younger students, record your own and just record your own video, put it in Google Drive, and link to that. Well, it may seem like it's a lot of front work for you going in, then you're not providing all of that feedback, reteaching one-on-one with students after the assessment is done. So you're kind of front loading your work instead of backloading that. And this is, oops, sorry. This is a, you know, kind of an easy way once you get the hang of it. Honestly, the first couple of times I tried, it took me a long time to go through this. But once you kind of figured it out, you followed the steps, it became a very easy piece to kind of just put together and put out there for students. I'm gonna do that every time I try to change, huh? All right, so we're going to jump into a quick 5-minute breakout room to do just a smaller group activity. So I'm in that note catcher that I gave you at the beginning, and I will just put that right back into the chat here for you. Here it comes. At the end of the note catcher is a space for you to see these slides that are here. So what I'm going to ask you to do, I'm going to put you in small groups just for 5 minutes, and we're going to come right back. Think about a task or assessment that you use in your class. And then given what we've discussed today with the SAMR model, with reflection-based assessment, how could it be redefined? And how could you maybe adapt it if you needed to for a remote and hybrid environment. And then building on that, think about that assessment on this scale, on this continuum. What is the main focus? What you have, and maybe is there anything that you want to redesign with that? So again, these two tasks are there for you at the end of that note catcher. We're going to come back at 3:25. I'm going to put you into breakout rooms now. You'll see they'll be random. And you'll see an invitation to join the breakout room pop up on your screen. If you need help moving yourself there, just let us know and we can help you do that. And then I will bring you back at 3:25. If you need help moving to your breakout room, just come on off mute and let me know and we can help you, or write that in the chat. Welcome back. We'll just give everybody a moment to come on out of their breakout rooms and return to us in the main room, and then we'll wrap up. All right, it looks like mostly everyone is back. So welcome back. I hope you were able to have a nice small group discussion about some of your assessment practices in your breakout rooms. I always find it's great to share with other people and hear what other people are doing, and that can help me inform what I'm doing in my classroom as well. All right, so we're just going to take a quick moment here to wrap up. So I just want to tell you about some other opportunities available for you in teaching across learning environments. You are over here, we're in course C, which is assessment and reflection. There are 3 other courses available for you for teaching across learning environments. Course A is planning and preparation. Class B, building the classroom community, and course D is the assessment cycle. These courses do not have to be taken in any order. You may be taking C as the first one. You can take them, they're just kind of labeled this way. So you can take them in any order that you're interested in. So we invite you to come back to sign up for another one of our classes here for teaching across learning environments, or any of our other professional developments that we have for you. So I just like to close by putting in the chat a link to our feedback form. I would love to hear what your thoughts were about our time together today. So if, as you are leaving, if you could take a moment and just grab this form from our chat and fill that out for me, I would greatly appreciate it. And I'd like to thank you for taking your time, your hour out of your day today to spend with me thinking about assessments. I hope you found what I presented to you to be helpful, and I hope you are able to apply it to your students. So thank you very much for joining us today. I hope to see you in the future at other professional developments. And please just grab that feedback form out of the chat and fill that out for me today. Have a great afternoon.